Hi, my name's Brian. I'm with MrMaple.com, and today we're talking about full moon hybrids. And we appreciate you watching this video today. And please remember to like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us get our word out on these beautiful trees.
Hey, I'm Matt at Mr. Maple.
And I'm Tim at Mr. Maple.
And welcome to the Mr. Maple Show. Today we got a fun topic for you. We're going to be talking about some different hybrid full moon maples.
Yeah, a lot of these, some people may not ever even list a lot of these as Acer Shirasolanum X, but all the ones we're talking about are all hybrids. Most are believed to be hybrids with Shirasolanum X palmatum.
Yeah, those Shirasolanums are the full moon maples, and a lot of the coolest new varieties of that are likely hybrids with palmatum, and that's where they get those cool new traits going on. And so we're going to talk about 4 of those that we're going to highlight here today. Now, a lot of Shirasolanums actually come from palmatifolium, Acer Shirasolanum palmatifolium. One of the most classic ones, I was in an arboretum in Holland with Cor van Gelderen, and he said, this Acer Shirasolanum palmatifolium right here is one that Trompenberg came under. So you might notice in our website, we list Trompenberg as a palmatum X Shirasolanum. So we don't always know both parents with the plants, so sometimes we just list them as an X. But we're going to talk about some fun new hybrids. Hopefully that part wasn't too geeky for you. We'll show some good colors and some fun stuff for you as well. But there's a lot of fun things going on with Acer Shirasolanum and the full moon hybrids.
And again, we're out of leaf here in the winter in January. This is 2022. And we're wanting to show y'all and talk about some fun plants. I know that y'all can't get enough of plants, even when they drop leaves. We'll be showing some photos in leaves just to make sure that you can get some of that excitement as well. But I really hope you enjoy this video.
So today's topic is Acer Shirasolanum hybrids, as we said, and we've laid out some of our favorite ones. We've just got a sampling of 4. There's actually a lot of these hybrids. Most of the new and exciting Acer Shirasolanums probably have a little influence from palmatum in them. So we're going to start out with some really fun ones. One of my favorites, and I think is a super underutilized tree, probably just because it's not known that well yet. I think as it gets out there more, it's going to be super popular, would be Bronze Age. Bronze Age is an introduction by our friend Talon Buchholz that goes through some amazing color changes.
Yeah, the bronze spring color is out of this world. It's something that just highlights the garden, and really the name is so apt because it's so bronze in the spring, then go into more of that green color during the summer, fall colors, yellows infused with oranges and reds. And
yeah, that's one, especially in the fall garden. I know a lot of our employees were like, what the heck is this one? Like, when it lit up in the fall, everybody here at the nursery was talking about it because it was just glowing. There was a whole batch of them there together that probably made an even bigger presence to it, but they really just show out.
And do check out our video. We have a whole video just on Bronze Age. New introduction by Talon Buchholz, one of our good friends and mentors. And it's an amazing complement to a lot of other plants in the garden and landscape. And would go really paired really well with some other Shirasolanums like Moonrise.
Yeah, I mentioned in another video, I like putting this one with Moonrise because Moonrise is like chartreuse green with bright red new growth, and this one's kind of like dark green with like bronzes new growth and even to deep red new growth at the tips.
Yeah.
And so the colors really complement itself. Like it contrasts with its own tree. So it's just a cool plant. I think it's one you're going to like in your garden, and give this one a shot. It's going to be a super popular plant as it gets out there more, I think. So.
So Acer Shirasolanum Purple Umbrella. This is a red new Shirasolanum hybrid by one of our good friends, Crispin Silva.
Yeah, a lot of color on this one. I'll be honest with you, I've actually seen photos of this one in the spring, and I said, that can't be correct. I'll throw in some spring photos of it here. It almost looks reticulated, especially in shade in the early spring. But what it's famous for is getting to that dark burgundy purple with that large leaf. It's a really elongated leaf as well. and so it kind of gives it that umbrella-like appearance on the foliage because it's a very elongated leaf.
And this one here, you can definitely look at the lobes of the leaf and see some Scirrhosolanum influence in it. You know, people often get desensitized by some of the new Scirrhosolanum that are red because they're familiar with Trompenberg. But this one has more of a wide spanning leaf than Trompenberg and really has that umbrella-like leaf where it gets the name of purple umbrella.
I think it's a super unique, more interesting of one of the new ones. It's definitely one we'll be offering a lot here at Mr. Maple. And I think it's just an interesting plant. I think it's one that's going to get more popular as it gets out there as well. I was shocked, giving this one some shade, you get some really weird, interesting colors, especially in early spring. So if you've got it in the shade garden early on, I mean, it might be a good candidate for a container, so you can kind of play with it in the shade in the spring and then get it to more light, because it does get that nice dark color. But I literally looked at a customer's photo and said, that can't be right. And then I went and looked at my trees in the greenhouse in heavy shade, and I was like, that's doing the exact same thing. And it's just almost like a reticulated, I don't know if it's reticulated as much as you can see each etching of each little fiber in the leaf, each of the veins. But it's really cool plant. I mean, it kind of blew me away for that. And it's going to go from that color to that darker color. And that's definitely where the purple part comes in.
Yeah, that dark purple really contrasts well because it's that purple black deep color that really makes it stand out.
So next up we have another classic of the full moon hybrids. This is Red Dawn. Red Dawn was one of the more popular early red forms of Acer Scirrhosolanum X, and I think it's one that's you know, really nice color. It actually gets some just really cool shades of almost like a violet purple in the early spring. Oh, yeah. I mean, it doesn't almost look real sometimes, and then it goes to an amazing shade in the fall. I have a pretty decent size one of these in my garden, and the fall colors on it are spectacular every year. I mean, it's like a bright pink red in the fall for us.
Yeah, and this is an introduction by Talon Buchholz, one of the very first red Scirrhosolanums. The leaf on it is amazing, but like Matt talked about, the fall color is electric. Just that bright red. This is a really good grower. We've been growing it in full sun in Western North Carolina, and it does fantastic for us. And this is a nice, strong, vigorous Scirrhosolanum hybrid. I mean, it really has some good growth to it.
Yeah, it's been very durable for me. I'm in 6B here, and it's been extremely durable in full sun for us here. But just really good colors. I mean, it looks great in every season, but that fall color is really when I take the most pictures of it, because it's just phenomenal in the fall garden.
Yeah. Last but not least of the full moon hybrids we're talking about today is Acer Scirrhosolanum Jordan. This is a bright yellow Japanese maple that's really just super electric yellow.
Yeah, when my wife and I were dating, there was a nice Jordan specimen there in my parents' garden. It's now in our yard. We dug it up, moved it. But she just referred to it as the neon tree when she didn't know anything about plants, because even as somebody who wasn't into plants, she was just drawn to it because those colors were spectacular. I mean, it's highlighter yellow in that spring garden. Maybe the most intense yellow of any of the maples. I mean, it's up there. It's definitely of like the Scirrhosolanums that may be the most intense yellow.
Now, Scirrhosolanum Jordan is extremely heat tolerant. There's a difference between heat tolerance and sun tolerance. So you still need to give this one protection from the hot afternoon sun. But with some sunlight, morning sun, afternoon shade, you'll intensify that bright yellow color on this. But this is a yellow full moon that can do well in the deep south when you give it protection from the hot afternoon sun.
For sure, just some really great color changes. You're going to go from that neon to more of a light green midsummer to a lime green late, and then those fall colors can range from, I've had almost bright pinks early to dark reds late. So you go through some just amazing color changes on that. I mean, I've almost got it more burgundy at times in the fall, but just some really nice color changes, and just looks amazing on that larger overall leaf. Definitely one that retains that big Scirrhosolanum style foliage, what's classic about a full moon maple. And it has that about it. It's pretty vigorous too, I would say, for for a full moon.
Yeah, and Jordan is was a selection by Fratelli Girardelli, named after his son Jordan. Now, the neat thing about this is we could have Summer Gold sitting up here as well, and that would confuse people. But what happened is they were sister seedlings, and Shira Solomon, as it matures out, it gets a more rounded leaf, just like the Golden Full Moon Acer Shira Solomon Aureum as it gets more mature growth, where Summer Gold has a more palmatum leaf, and hence, even though they're both Shira Solomon X hybrids, one was labeled a palmatum, and Jordan was labeled as a Shira Solomon, but they're both actually hybrids, which maybe we're getting a little too geeky for you, but it shows you that a lot of the neat plants coming out are hybrids that are really changing things that are really unique, things that are really different, and add a lot to the garden.
Yeah. You know, we often mention that Japanese maples are kind of on a big timeline. So if it's an easier way to look at it, some things may be closer to other species on that timeline. So if you kind of drew a big chart, you may say, here's palmatum, here's Shira Solomon, and somewhere here, this is where this one's a little closer to this side, and this one's a little closer to this side in its hybridization. So it's interesting, and that's one of the reasons we love Japanese maples so much. If you collect seed from Acer Shira Solomon Jordan, some are going to look like the parent plant, but some are going to look completely different. And so that's part of why you see that in the maple industry. Now, some nurserymen will label every Acer Shira Solomon that has the seeds aiming up, or excuse me, every Japanese maple that has the seeds aiming up as an Acer Shira Solomon. So that's one way it's looked at to figure out which ones could possibly be hybrids. But you know, there's all kinds of different opinions on that too. So there's lots of different ways to check. I could think of some palmatums that may even break that mold right off the bat. But really fun plant. I think you're gonna like Acer Shira Solomon Jordan in your garden. And we have some amazing sizes in this one right now also. So one thing that's been really popular are these discussion segments we've been doing. And so we brought Brian Rule in here for our discussion segment. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the full moon hybrids, some of the things we like about them, some of our favorite ones, and just a little bit about full moon hybrids in general.
So Brian, which of these Shira Solomon full moon hybrids did you have in your garden in Oklahoma?
Well, as some of you may know, at one time I had about 250 different varieties in my garden in Oklahoma. And actually I had all 4 of these in my garden. So these were just something I was really interested in collecting. You know, probably one of my favorites of all was the Jordan. I really pushed the limit on the sun exposure on that, and it just really made that color pop. Sometimes it even almost bleach out the leaf to like a white yellow.
Yeah.
Really got some great color on that, but all of them were really cool.
And you said you had a big red Dawn in your garden.
I did, yeah. I was really missing it now because I've sold the garden. I got a really nice big one just before I moved out here. But I know I'll have some more in my future, that's for sure.
For sure. I think I know a place you can find some.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite out of all these, I love Jordan. Jordan is the most yellow, super outstanding, very vigorous growing full moon maple. Jordan's got to be my favorite out of the group, but Bronze Age is a close second for me. I think Bronze Age was that bronze color that we talked about before really gives something different to a full moon hybrid.
Yeah, there's so many qualifiers. We always joke that picking your favorite Japanese maple is like picking your favorite kid. There's so many different qualifiers. Like if you ask me what my favorite fall color out of this group was, it would be a different answer than if you asked me what my favorite spring color out of this group was. So,
sure.
You know, if I was going fall color, I would either say Bronze Age or Red Dawn. My Red Dawn in my garden is like one of the peak fall color plants in the whole garden.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Red Dawn may be my favorite just based off fall color. If I'm going on uniqueness and differences, I may pick that Purple Umbrella. I really like how just has this wicked look to it in the early spring that just was, I mean, I almost didn't think it was correct, and then I was blown away that they all looked like that. So I think that one brought the shock and awe to me enough that it might be top of my list if I went for all around spring, winter, fall.
Yeah, and the bark is so dark too. It really gives a nice. It almost has purple bark to it during the winter. It's much darker and very different from a lot of other Japanese maples.
Very
one,
true.
One thing I experienced with that, especially growing in Oklahoma, was that getting it out into the full sun, it pushed the limit with it, but I could almost get this almost black color to the leaf.
Yeah.
It was so dark that you could just, I mean, it was amazing that you could get that color on a maple.
Yeah, I think that Jordan still is just the top for me. Yellow isn't used enough in the landscape. When you put yellows out in the landscape, what it does is it draws your attention to the yellow, but it also gives contrast with your greens, with your reds, and it makes you see all the greens in your landscape when in the different shades of green when you put that yellow in there. It's something about how it tricks the eyes. You put that yellow in there, and it makes the whole landscape open up with color.
Douglas Justice once joked with me at a Maple Society meeting. He said if he was going to open a nursery like mine, he would do nothing but Shirosawinums and Shirosawanum hybrids. And I said, I like to eat enough to not take that risk. I like to have a well-rounded place, but I get where you can come from with that kind of attitude because there's so many different unique colors you can get going on here. One thing I think is interesting about the hybrids, I would say in general they're a little bit more vigorous than Acer Shirosawanum cultivars too. So
Yeah,
like
I think so.
the growth rate is a little bit more picked up on the hybrids. Maybe that palmatum influence kind of gets them a little bit more vigor long term. But definitely I noticed that with the hybrid varieties that they're a little faster growing than the straight Shirosawanum cultivars.
Yeah, and we have two here that are from Talon Buckholz, but we could probably put up 15
Oh, yeah.
Shirosawanum hybrids that were introduced by Talon because he's sort of been one of the pioneers on introducing a lot of Shirosawanum hybrids.
Yeah, we got to go on a really cool trip with Carl Munn a couple years ago. I think you probably know Carl pretty well
Carl
too.
well, yeah.
Shout out,
Yeah.
Carl. Hope you're watching.
Yeah, great friend of ours. Carl was so generous one time. He took us to meet Jim Baggett, who was a hybridizer and did a lot of early Shirosawanum hybridization work.
And with Dr. Al Mosley. Both of them were former professors at Oregon State University. Dr. Al Mosley is the potato guy. He started PotatoNet. And
Super interesting guy too.
And Jim Baggett is a world-renowned plant breeder at Oregon State University. And his passion that he's often doing at his house is growing Japanese maples from seed.
Yeah, so he hybridized a lot of really interesting JB, and then there would be a number after it. A lot of those turned into some of Talon's introductions as well
Some of them did, yeah.
that he gave him to introduce and put more formal names on them. Just some amazing plants. I think they're super interesting. He just had a really cool garden. We got to go and tour his place. Gosh, it's probably been several years ago now. But what a wealth of knowledge. We were videoing one point. I walked around and he had an area where he had been growing Shishigashiras for like literally 50 years for bonsai.
Wow.
And Tim's videoing me, or I'm videoing, I don't remember. We're asking him about variations of Shishigashira that he found. And he said he had a variegated one, but the you know what thing got too big.
Too vigorous.
Yeah, it was too vigorous for his bonsai, so he threw it out. And I'm like, so just some really cool work done there with hybridizing. But he had a passion specifically for the Shirosawanum palmatum hybrids for sure.
And Dr. Jim Baggett has passed away now. He was a good friend. Him and Dr. Al Mosley, I still call Dr. Mosley and talk to him from time to time.
Yeah, just a
And
wealth of knowledge for sure.
A lot of fun Shirosawanums came out through that time. And we'll probably include some videos of that, I'm sure.
Yeah. We may do a deeper dive on that even more too.
But Shirosawanum hybrids, I think there's a lot going towards the future. We may later do some Oliveranum hybrid videos and some of the cool new species that people delve into. But full moon hybrids are something that I think can add a lot to the garden with a lot of the full moon characteristics people love, like that spectacular fall color, a little bit wider leaf than the palmatum, but then add some vigor in that you get from the Shirosawanum.
Yeah, I think with the palmatum influence, you just get some fun traits there too that kind of throw, something extra in there. You've already got that big leaf shape, but now you got some just unique, crazy things going on.
And one thing about Acer Shirosawanum is it often leaves out a little later than your typical palmatum. And you may find that with some of the hybrids that they leaf out a little bit later than palmatums, which make them a little more frost resistant.
Well, Brian, did you have a favorite of this group?
Well, I'll tell you, I was going to say, one thing that's great about this group is I feel like the hybrids really bring you something that you could contrast each one of these with itself and each other, and it would be, even though you're in the same species, you're going to have a great contrast between each tree. I really like that about this group.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan. I get it. I could grow a whole nursery of Shirosawodum hybrids. We like to mix it up a little too much to go that specific, but I could see where you could go that route because there's so many fun, new and interesting things to go through when you go through that full moon hybrids.
Huh? Where you got your
Oh no, just
your plants from? Huh? Probably grafted from there. Wow. Yeah. This one doesn't get much water, obviously, or fertilizer. Yeah.
So this was a seedling you found?
Yeah, that's the original. This problem in there, shade and competition, I have a hard time leaving just, there's a very dry
Yeah.
bed and it's hard to water, but that tree's very poor compared to Alvin's specimen.
and you found this is a seedling off of his.
That's seedling off. That's the original seedling. His is the grafted one of this.
Yeah.
And the mother was Shirosawodum, where the seed came from,
Off a straight Shirosawodum.
as far as I know.
Okay.
I mean, it was. I think that was from Vertrees. I'm not sure. Where do we get that?
I think Vertrees, and it's we think it's palmatifolium,
Yeah,
the original.
but I think we had maybe other forms of it. But and I may still have one of them over there. It's a very sick plant over there in the shade.
Hey, we had a really fun discussion today on full moon hybrids, and we're also looking into doing some podcasts. So you guys stay tuned for that. We're going to do a lot of cool things together and get a lot more discussion with plants that we're carrying.
We're really excited about that. We think you're going to be a really fun part of that. Gives me and Tim somebody else to talk to too, and it just makes it more fun. I mean, we can feel your enthusiasm creeping into ours as well. So stay tuned. Mr. Maple podcast coming soon. We're going to start out maybe weekly and be adding more. Who knows? So definitely check that out. For right now, if you'd like to, you can check out the Mr. Maple Show and Podcast on Facebook, as well as our new page on Instagram, just Mr. Maple Show on Instagram. So check those out. We'll be adding behind the scenes content that we may discuss in the podcast. We'll be looking for ideas for podcast episodes there. If you want, in the comments below, put out some of your favorite ideas that you'd like to see in our upcoming Mr. Maple Show podcast. So give us some suggestions there. We'll be covering so many different topics. Things like Acer Shirosawodum hybrids, maybe even a more in-depth look. So we greatly appreciate you liking, subscribing, sharing this with your gardening friends. That's one of the best ways to get our channel out there, is sharing our love of gardening with others. And as always, sign up for those weekly emails on MrMaple.com. We add at least 10 exciting new plants every single Tuesday at 10. So there's always something new and exciting coming out. Thanks for checking out today's video. God bless and have a great day.